What's going on? It's Jack here, and today I have a video for you guys. This will be similar to the team builder videos I did for season 2, but with a bit of a twist. Instead of just talking about one matchup, I'm going to be going over the team building process as a whole and how I do it. There are a couple new coaches this season, so this video might give some insight on how to prep for your games or be helpful in general to anyone who might struggle with team building. I don't think I'm the be-all end-all of team builders or the best team builder in the SBL, but I've built for around 50 different games now over the past year and a half, and this is the process that has worked best for me. In order to show the building process, I'm going to take one game from season 3 where I think the final team I made was fairly solid and use that as the template. Alright, so the game from season 3 that I'm going to be focusing on is my rematch against the Green Bay Slackings, although I'm just going to be focusing on the rematch and not the first game. So before I actually team build, one of the things I do in my spare time is on my phone, I'll just make a list of the opponent's team and I'll go over their common weaknesses. I'll make some observations. Like, I noticed that he has pretty good team synergy overall, no 4x weaknesses besides Charizard's rock weakness before it megas. And like, I also noticed some other things like Crocodile is his only stealth rocker. But I also noticed that he has no normal resist, so I know the Fake Out Last Resort Mega Lopunny set could actually be pretty good. Other than that, you can see I'm debating between some coverage moves with some of my Pokemon, debating between like Earthquake and Rock Slide on Tangrowth, which one do I want, which one will be more useful. I was considering safety goggles on Mesprit. So this is just some like initial observations I make. It gives me some ideas before I actually team build. Although there are some weeks where I'm just super busy and I don't really have time to sit down and spend time team building because I just have so much stuff going on. In that case, these notes become really helpful because I can do them pretty quickly. And I can just spend 10 to 15 minutes on Showdown putting all of this in, adding some EV spreads, and in times where I don't have a lot of time to team build, this can be super helpful in making sure that I actually have something I can use for the games. Alright, so this is my planning document from Season 3, and pretty much this is where I do all of my team building. I just do it in Word, and I do all my calcs here, and I figure everything out, and then I put everything in Showdown after I'm done all my work here. So, focusing on the Week 11 game I played, first off I just put his team and all his tiers. I just copy this right out of the documents. Then one of the things I do is I go over speed tiers, so I just record how fast each of the Pokemon are, and this will be helpful sometimes in planning and for doing speed creeping. And I can also just make observations, like I can look at a team and be like, okay, wow, this team's very fast, I need to keep that in mind. Or I'll see, wow, this team's very slow, I can abuse that and bring some of my faster Pokemon so I can outspeed everything. And then what I have here is matchups, so pretty much I take all of their Pokemon and I'll just look at what on my team will deal with what he has on his team. So let's take Charizard X. I know Mega Lopunny with Fake Out and Quick Attack can Revenge Kill it if it starts setting up. I know Victini with Choice Scarf can potentially outspeed it or Speed Type sets up. Melodic and Regirock can take hits from it pretty well, and also Sneasel with the Choice Scarf can deal with it. So I just do that for pretty much all of the Pokemon here. Some of it's very straightforward, like I don't really need to run a calc with Victini that says Victini can beat Amoonguss. That's very obvious. And same thing with Mesprit and Nidoqueen. Although I might run calcs to see like how much does Nidoqueen Earth Power do if I don't want to bring Ice Beam. And I just tend to run calcs on all these things. Like I actually use the calc thing on Showdown to actually like run specific calcs, but for a lot of the stuff it's pretty straightforward. Like I know Tangrowth and Assault Vest can take most hits from Raikou. I know Mega Lopunny can outspeed and deal with it. And I should go through all his Pokemon. Some of it's kind of specific, like Hitmonlee. Nidoqueen can deal with it, but only if it's physically defensive. Florges is a pretty good answer, but if it has Poison Jab, then it can't really take that super well. So I just go over his team, and I just focusing on what I can deal with, or what on my team deals with what on his team. And I'll look at what things are super common, like what Pokemon on my team are commonly appearing, which deal with a lot of his team. And if I'm ever like looking at my team and think, okay, well I'm super weak to Hitmonlee, this is when I can go back to the document and figure out, well maybe I want to add a physically defensive Nidoqueen to my team and see if that works with other stuff. And after that, right here I just take my final team and I just put it into the doc. It's just like the copy paste because I lost my old laptop, I lost all my old teams, so I just record everything just in case I ever have any issues. On Showdown, my team's like disappearing, just make sure I have everything. And right here I just have my notes, usually for speed creeping, so like Sneasel, its speed creeps max speed, Charizard X at +1, Mega Lopunny has enough speed to outspeed Timid, Starmie, and Raikou, which are both 115, and a couple of damage things, so I know like Victini can live a +1 hit from Charizard if we speed's high, just like the damage calc for how much a +1 foul play does the Charizard, because I know I outspeed it, so I just put a few notes here which can be helpful during the game if I have my Mega Lopunny in versus Starmie, I just want to make sure that I sped corrupt it. I'll have my document open, I can double check all this stuff. But in general, this is probably the longest part of team building for me. Just going over all these calcs and just figuring out the matchups, figuring out if I have any like ideas, like let's say I want to bring a special Victini, how well does special Victini deal with stuff on his team? If I want to bring, I don't know, like fake out last resort, make a low punny, I run calcs with that versus Amoonguss, and I noticed that versus Amoonguss, return won't to a KO, but last resort will, which gives me the idea of, okay, well, this could be a very good set, and same thing for Unicolus. And other things, like I figure out how much does a choice banded Crocodile do to Melodic. I know it's going to be a 2-hit KO, so during the game I'm kind of keeping in mind, like, there was a point in the game actually where I think his Crocodile, I think he did bring a choice banded Crocodile, and it wanted to attack my Melodic, and I'm like, okay, that does so much, and I knew from the calcs preemptively, okay, this is most likely a choice banded Crocodile, and I can run the calcs in game just to double check. So this is like the longest stage of team building for me. Alright, one other thing that I wanted to bring up really quickly is actually showing the damage calculator, which I was talking about earlier. So right here, this is the Mega Low Bunny Calc versus Amoonguss that I was showing. So I can see from the last resort that it does 54 to 64, which compared to return is doing way less. So I know that like the standard Mega Low Bunny set isn't really going to be able to break Amoonguss, but I also know with last resort I'm going to be able to easily 2 a KO. So I can double check these things, I can make sure the sets I'm bringing aren't just gimmicks, they're actually going to have some merit. And like another example, so one of the things I wanted to test out was Regirock versus Mega Charizard X, and how well does Regirock actually take hits from this thing? And I can look, okay, well yeah, it takes hits very well, even if it has Earthquake, like a really good coverage move versus me. I can still see it's doing very minimal damage, and this isn't even fully physically defensive. This is like minimal investment, and I can see Stone Edge with no investment. It's doing so much back. So I know, okay, Regirock's gonna be a very safe switch into Zardex. Even if it starts boosting up its attack, I can take these hits pretty well and get a big hit off. I can go for Thunder Wave. So this is pretty much what I'm doing to double check all my calcs and to make sure if I bring a wall for a Pokemon, that Pokemon's actually gonna be able to wall it. And I can double check, like if I want to bring a weird spread, I want to bring something defensive that's usually not defensive, I can double check everything here. I can test out the effectiveness of like random coverage moves and all that kind of stuff. So using the damage calculator, super helpful whenever I have the time to. And also one other thing I want to show, and this is something I only do for pretty much playoffs matches or like really important matches, is sometimes I do scouting. So this is against my finals game versus Brian. I just listed how many times he brought each Pokemon. So I can see he brought Tornadus T, I think every single game except one, and usually it's commonly Assault Vest or Life Orb, and it's going to be mixed. So Cobalion, he usually brings Close Combat, Iron Head, and he's brought Shuckleberry a lot, but he's also brought these other kind of moves. Mega Absol is usually standard sets with coverage moves. Whenever he brings Crustle, you know, he's brought Shell Smash with Lum, but he's brought Hazard Stacking. So I just have notes on all of the things he's done, so that when I play him, I'm not super surprised. Because if he brings, like, say he brings Mega Absol Swords Dance every single game, and if he brings the same thing against me, I don't want to be surprised by the fact that he's bringing it. I want to see the fact that he's bringing Mega Absol and know, okay, it's most likely Knock Off, Sucker Punch, and these two coverage moves, or maybe a coverage move in Pursuit. So, like, I'm not super surprised by what he's bringing. I know what their common habits are and stuff like that. But I only really do this for, like, playoffs game because it is super time consuming, and it's usually not worth it a lot of the time. Alright, so once I've got all my notes on my phone, and I've done all my calcs, and I've got everything written down in my Word doc, this is when I actually start to take my team and start to build it actually on Showdown. So a lot of the time, the first thing I'll do is I'll put down sets that I'm pretty sure I'm going to bring. So I know I'm going to bring Mega Lopunny, and I'm pretty set on bringing the Fake Out Last Resort set. So I put that down, and I start doing my speed creeping. I know the fastest thing on his team is going to be Raikou and Starmie at base 115, so I put enough speed to outspeed that. Then I know I can also run Adamant Nature for extra power, and I can put the rest into bulk. I think speed creeping is super important because you don't always need to be max speed, especially on your fastest Pokemon. You just need to be able to outspeed certain things, because like if he's going to bring a Choice Scarf Pokemon, they're going to outspeed Mega Lopunny, so there's literally no point to bring max speed. You can run an attack boosting nature, put some extra bulk on there, and you never know when it might come in handy. So this is also, I had Sneasel here, but like in some cases, I'm not sure what final move I want to put there. I've got a couple moves I want to bring, but there's like one extra move, and I don't really know what I want. It could be an extra coverage move, could be something more specific or niche, and I'm not really sure. There might be times where I'm still debating on EV spreads. I don't know how much speed I want to put on something. I'm not sure if I want something to be bulky or more offensive. I might be debating on moves, or there might be Pokemon where I'm just debating if I want to bring them at all. So a lot of the time, I might build a team, and I might kind of step away from it for a bit. I might not focus on it for a while, and I'll just kind of brainstorm different ideas, and it's like kind of like a puzzle. I'm like slowly putting pieces together. So eventually I might just think, okay, well, I want Pursuit on this, and this will be the best move I can put here because I can Pursuit trap some things, and that might be helpful. sometimes I can go through this and I'll be like, okay, what niche move do I really need? And this is when I discover something like Endivore. I'm like, well, Endivore is super helpful because if I'm low on health against like a Reuniclus, I can get that thing really low. I might be able to get like a surprise kill or like weaken something enough so something else can kill it. And because I don't really need any other coverage, this is where I'm free to try out some more creative stuff. And then for Mesprits, after a while I decided that I didn't actually want a safety goggle set. I wanted something that, well, I want something that can just set up a sub or be something more offensive, and this is when I decided that I wanted to do these sub calm line sets. So like I decided to do leftovers, and I decided to do sub calm line. I won't bother with the EV spread. And then eventually, this is kind of like an idea of what the final team might look like. I still have to do the EVs on this, but after a while, I'm looking at the team. I actually decided this last minute. Okay, well my team's very, very weak to Hitmonlee right now. It pretty much runs through most of my team because Hitmonlee can 2-hit KO Melodic, it can 2-hit KO this because I'm not physically defensive, and like a potential fake out Unburdened Hitmonlee or like a choice banded Pokemon, even Mach Punch or Mega Lopunny, it could actually like destroy a lot of my team. So last minute I decided to make a change and I actually decided to sub out Dusknoir, which was a new Pokemon I had at the time. And I think I had Shadow Sneak, Earthquake, Will-O-Wisp, and Pain Split, and I decided to put Colberberry just so I can deal with knockoffs. So sometimes last minute I'll just make changes because they might suit the team better, and I think it was just standard defensive spread. And I've done this a few times where I've just like last minute just changed up the team, and because I think I'm too weak to something, I just feel like there's a hole and I need to figure out what's wrong with the team. Because the goal of this team is pretty much, like I want a lot of teams I'm building like a balanced team, or you can build whatever team you want, but generally you want a win condition. So in this case my win condition is pretty much Mega Lopunny, although sub calm line Mesprit can also be a win condition in this game. But I also usually want a defensive core that can deal with everything on his team. So looking at his team, I know Dusknoir, Melodic, and Tangrowth. Also Mesprit can deal with some things on his team like Amoonguss and Reuniclus because they can't break my sub and I can set up on them. These 4 Pokemon can pretty much deal with this entire team defensively, while Sneasel can make sure that I'm not swept by Charizard. They can Pursuit Trap some things. Mega Lopunny can come in late game once things are weakened and pretty much destroy things to last resort. I've pretty much got a solid balanced team with some win conditions and a bulky defensive core that can deal with everything on his team. When you're team building, you kind of just want to have a team concept. Maybe you want to go more offensive. And if you're building an offensive team, maybe you want like a suicide lead or something like that. Or maybe you're building like a stall team. So you want to make sure you have everything on your opponent's team covered, and you've make sure that you can pretty much have an answer for everything they've got. You just want to have a team concept, and you just want to be able to have answers for everything, as well as some sort of way you can actually win the game, no matter how you're trying to do it. Alright, so to end this video, and while I have the game playing in the background, I'm not going to be talking about it. I just want to give some other like general advice about team building, some things that I didn't mention, and like a general like some things you can think about while you're building teams. So one of the things I mentioned is having a team concept. So when you're building your team, you just kind of want to think about what you want to go for. Are you going for a balanced type where you want like 3 offensive mons, 3 bulky mons? Or you want like a more offensive team, like maybe hyper offense, or maybe bulky offense, maybe you want like a semi-stall team, stall. Are you having an emphasis on hazard stacking? Maybe your opponent doesn't have any clerics, so you want to go like hazard, or you want to go like status spam. Generally, you just want to have some sort of thing you're building your team around, or maybe some set or Pokemon you're building your team around, and that's kind of your team concept. And that also relates into having a win condition. And win condition is just pretty much any Pokemon that is like the main way you're winning the game. Usually win conditions are going to be like setup sweepers, but they can also be like scarfers. They could also be like maybe like a Specs or a banded Pokemon. They can be any sort of Pokemon. It could even be something bulky, because maybe once your opponent has lost a couple Pokemon, they can't beat your fat Pokemon. Like maybe you have a Skarmory, and once your opponent has lost their electric and fire type, they just cannot beat your Skarmory. It'll just wall everything. So these are more tips that are more also just general to playing the game. But these are things you should focus on when you're team building. Just thinking about ways you can win the game and what sets you can bring that can pretty much win the game. In the game I'm showing here, you'll notice later on in the game, Mega Lopunny gets like 3 kills the last resort set, and also gets like a big hit on Charizard X. And that pretty much was my win condition. Once I got a chance to get into Mega Lopunny, and the Fake Out Last Resort set ended up doing really well, that was the main way I won the game. Once that got in and did a lot of damage, all I really had to do was like go into a couple mons and click a couple buttons, and like the game was won. Like that set put me in a position to win the game, and it was my win condition. Other things I want to think about when you're planning and prepping is just have answers for everything. Sometimes people will underestimate like an NU or an RU threat and they won't prep for it. And my advice is to pretty much prep for every single Pokemon your opponent has, even if you don't think they're going to bring it, or even if you don't think it's a big threat. Just keep everything in mind and assume that they could bring anything, because you never want to be in a position where you underestimate something. You don't think like an NUmon, like maybe in this game, I guess one example was Hitmonlee. I wasn't entirely sure if he'd bring Hitmonlee, but I didn't want to bring a team that was super weak to it, which is why I ended up bringing Dusknoir. And even if I didn't bring Dusknoir, if I brought Rock, there's no guarantee like he would have won with that thing, but I would have been very weak to it, and I would have been in a position where that he could have won with it. So my advice is pretty much never plan for just 6 Pokemon. Never plan what you think your opponent's going to bring, because you never really know what they're going to bring. You're not your opponents, you can't really get inside their head. Just prep for everything and have answers for everything, and you'll be in a position so that no matter what they bring, you'll have a plan. And I guess one final thing I want to talk about is pretty much creativity. One thing you want to avoid, especially as the season goes on, it can be pretty long, I think we're having a 12-week season for Season 4, so it's like 3 months pretty much of games, is don't fall into the habit of bringing the same sets on Pokemon every single time, or bringing the same team every single time. You want to have a team that you can be creative with. You want to have Pokemon that are versatile, that you can change up week to week. You don't want to be in a position where you're bringing the same set every single week, because after a while it gets very predictable and people start very heavily counter-teaming those predictable sets. So let's say you bring Mew, you draft Mew, and it's a very good mon, but every single week you bring Roost, Will-O-Wisp, Knockoff, Defog, and that's what you bring every single week. Well, you're not really using Mew to its full potential. You're not really getting creative with that Pokemon. What you want to do is I say in terms of drafting, you want to give yourself a team that has lots of options, so that if you're not limited in team building. That's like the one thing to have in team building. If you draft poorly, you're not going to be able to team build effectively, just because you're pretty limited from the start. But in terms of team building, you want to have some creativity. You want to try out new things week to week. You want to find ways to use your RU and NU Pokemon, because those things have a lot of value. If you have if you're not using those lower picks particularly well, you're going to struggle, because you're going to be relying a lot on your higher tier picks, and those won't always be able to pull all their weight. You want to make sure you have a team where all the Pokemon you have niches. They can all be useful at different times, and you can change up what they're doing week to week. And you want to avoid the habit of becoming predictable. Every once in a while, try out some like weird creative coverage move. Try out like a weird set. Think about what moves will catch your opponent off guard. You can look at your team and think, okay, well, this is a pretty decent team, but it looks very standard. Is there anything I can change that will make it more, that might catch my opponent off guard? Maybe it's like a weird coverage move. Maybe it's some sort of like weird, maybe some like mixed move. Just try to find ways where you can have a more creative team, and you'll be less predictable, because it's hard to predict people who are just changing up what they're doing every single week, and it's going to make it way harder for your opponent to prep for you. So overall, this has just been sort of a general overview for team building. As I said at the very beginning of the video, I don't think what I do is the best way to do it. I don't think it's like 100% guaranteed you'll win every single time you do this, because I don't. This is just what I do that I think works pretty well. It's all about finding how you want to team build and what works for you. And obviously, it's also just a time-consuming thing. This league is a time-consuming thing. There'll be some weeks where you just don't have time. You'll spend 10 minutes in Showdown, you'll throw together a quick team, because that's all you can do, and that's fine. This is just an idea of what I've done, especially for the newer coaches who might not do a lot of team building and they might be completely new to the league format. This is what I've been doing since Season 1 and other leagues too. That's worked for me pretty well. Just in general, cover everything, have a team concept, have a win condition, have answers for everything, and you should be fine. All you have to do at that point is play the best you can of the team you have. Follow the script, so to speak. If you have a good team, just do what you need to do, and hopefully you can win. So thanks for watching, guys. I try to keep this as short as I can while also being helpful. If you did find it helpful, awesome. Otherwise, see you guys in season 4.